Tell me, do you watch my reactions? You will.
What's good, y'all? Yo, you already know if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like, drop that sub, turn on them notices, because we doing these videos daily. So you guys sent me this interesting ass article, bro. I was just playing some Apex, and we had to get this video in. So apparently Ben Affleck has said something about Zack Snyder and defended him. Let's go ahead and jump to this article, man. It says tone is not a qualitative thing. Ben Affleck refused to accept 873 million Zack Snyder movie was a failure. Slam fans having a problem with gritty, dark superhero movies. 873 million is not a flop. It's not a failure either. People were saying it was a failure because it didn't hit a billion, but studio interference caused that. So it says Ben Affleck is a multifaceted, I don't know that word, actor. While fans love him for his versatile acting talent, many also admire him for his personality and no nonsense persona. Affleck is often vocal and is never afraid to voice his opinions when critics call him out. One of the things he defended was the critically negative reviews his 873 million Zack Snyder movie received. Called out for being too dark and negative for being a superhero movie. Affleck blamed the audience and critics for not being able to understand the movie's tone. While critics certainly did not like his comments, fans showed support. Also, let me see. I am a little promiscuous with who I main. Ben Affleck is a Valorant fan. His favorite agent is the perfect choice for Batman. The Ben Affleck stars Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice was all set to become the biggest superhero movie of all time. It brought together DC's two most iconic, loved, and fan favorite characters head to head in what would be the biggest superhero event on the big screens. Unfortunately, despite pitching Batman against Superman, having a star-studded cast, the movie failed to woo critics. Even though the movie became the second highest grossing DC movie at 873 million, critics weren't amazed at the dark and gritty storyline. In an interview, the lead star Affleck called all the fans and critics who labeled it a flop. It was a huge hit movie. More people went to see that than any movie I ever made in my career. It was the biggest hit of my career. And then it had a lot of editorial negativity. It was interesting, that movie, because it was judged not necessarily on execution so much as on its tone. The Batman star stated as he urged fans and critics alike to understand the movie's environment, execution, rather than focusing on the tone. And that is the article. That is the article. Wait, is that the article? Oh, wait, there's a little bit more. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice was criticized for being too long, messy, and unnecessarily dark. Many reviews stated that the movie would have been watchable had it not introduced an unwitting, gritty narrative to an already dark storyline. Even after critical reviews, Ben Affleck exclaimed that he loves the tone of the storyline, which many profess to hate. People seem to want to have a lighter tone to the movie, and I thought that was interesting because it's subjective. Tone is not a qualitative thing. It's subjective, right? Some tones resonate with me that might not with you, and the tone of the movie was really parallel to the Frank Miller book, The Dark Knight Returns, which I liked and thought was great. I'm glad that so many people went and so many people liked the movie. It worked out. Even though most would not agree with Affleck's sentiments, the movie's reviews and commercial success do stand testament to the fact that perhaps the movie wasn't as bad. That is the article. You look, you already know my opinions on Batman v Superman from day one. After Zack Snyder's version came out, the full version is gonna be one of the best comic book heroes of all time. I don't care what nobody says. Batman v Superman, I've said this in multiple videos, is a great movie. And I don't, that's the thing. Is people are so accustomed to the Marvel funny stuff that we can't even have dark and gritty. This movie should have never been judged because it was too dark and too gritty. DC is dark and gritty. DC, the dark and gritty fits the characters and the villains. It just fits the villain arcs and the hero arcs just so much better than it could Marvel. I think Marvel played into what worked for them, and that was what they've done. What they did with Tony Stark and everybody with Robert Downey Jr. It worked for them. DC is a darker, more grittier comic book adaptation you could put on the big screen. It just works that way. Their characters and the heroes, like, it just works better that way. Yes, Superman is for hope and all that, but man, I gotta I've said this too. I've never been the biggest Superman fan, man. Like, he's a boring character, man. He goes and saves cats out of trees and stuff like that. Zack Snyder's version made me really, really like Superman. I've never been a big Superman fan. I really never really cared for Superman. I knew about Superman because of Batman, honestly. Zack Snyder's Superman really put me on the map of liking Superman a lot more, a whole lot more. Henry Cavill played the role so well. Now, when it comes to Batman v Superman and calling this movie a flop, it's crazy how they call this movie a flop. It made almost $900 million. And if you want to call the movie a flop, you got to blame the studio because the studio chopped it up. If the studio didn't chop the movie up, this movie would have made $1 billion. And we probably wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. Zack Snyder would probably, if we in another dimension right now, Zack Snyder is finishing up his Snyderverse. In some other dimension, he is finishing up the Snyderverse because on that dimension, Warner Bros. Stuck it out. They didn't interfere somewhere, and he got to complete his arc because the movies was a success. You know what I'm saying? So Ben, I support you, bro. I support you. I support Zach. I support the whole cast. It's hashtag restore the Snyderverse for me from day one because I love the work they've done, man. It just appreciate it, bro. Bro. I've said this in so many videos. Zack Snyder is definitely he was definitely ahead of his time. He's like Bruce Lee. He's like Bruce Lee of movie making. Bruce Lee was ahead of his time in martial arts. Zack Snyder is ahead of his time in the movie making when it comes to comics because it all started with what's that movie called? Watchmen. Even actors have came out and said it. So hey, restore the Snyderverse. You already know on my end. So I definitely support what Ben Affleck's saying. Movie's definitely not a flop. The theatrical version, yes, it was chopped up. Studio's fault. So that's what I gotta say on it, man. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought. If you enjoyed my reaction, make sure you hit that like, drop that sub, turn to them noties, man, and restore that Snyderverse. Catch you on the next 100,000 subscribers. Let's get it.